More swell, less wind. I'm Mark Sponsler, and welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Sunday, February 6th.
Stormsurf, waves, weather, buoys, altimetry, snow, temperatures, El Niño, weather analysis, real data for outdoor people, all the time, no hype.
Looking at significant wave heights in the North Pacific Ocean, we see remnants of a gale pushing into northern Canada with 26-foot seas, and a new gale developing on the dateline with about 35, 36-foot seas and pushing off to the east. So, yet another in a series of small gales is producing some swell bound for Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast. Let's get into the details. As usual, we'll start by looking at jet stream level winds. These winds up about 30,000 feet help support the formation of gales when they form, help direct their track. Alright, so what we have is a consolidated flow of winds, 180, 190 knots, pushing off of Japan on about the 35 north latitude line, making it to about 160 west, a point north of Hawaii. Then the jet stream splits. What we're looking for is a dip in the jet, and again, we don't see it. We see this kind of flat flow, but if there was a dip here, that would help create a counterclockwise flow aloft. It's sort of like think of the jet stream like a river, and as it's flowing, if it dips, it creates eddies and currents, and that dip in the jet would create a counterclockwise current to the north of it, and down deeper in the atmosphere at the ocean surface. That's the hallmark of low pressure in the northern hemisphere. Low pressure, of course, if it's strong enough, generates winds. Winds, if they're strong enough, they get traction on the ocean surface, they generate seas. Seas, as they radiate away from the fetch area, eventually turn into swell. Swell, when it hits your beach, turns into surf. So we don't have a real trough here, but we have enough wind speed to certainly get some sort of circulation going. And we know that there's a gale, well, right in there. That's kind of a trough. We know there's a little something here, and that's kind of a trough there. But east of this split pattern, between the split, you get high pressure, a clockwise flow. And what you get, is where we are in California. Beautiful, cloudless skies, light winds, and that's all great, but no rain, and this time of year, we really need the rain. All right, moving on. As we get into Monday, pretty much the same thing. Little bit of a trough starts carving out here in we'll say the northwestern Gulf on Tuesday, lifting up towards the Aleutians as we get into Wednesday. And then that kind of fades out. And as we get later into Wednesday, notice wind speeds in the jet really start dropping off. You go, wow, maybe this is all over. Maybe the jet stream is going to split. And you see right here, as the energy levels drop in the jet tries to split out almost to the dateline, but then there's this new infusion of wind energy that's forecast on Friday, pushing over Japan at 180 knots, back to 190 knots. Nice trough is forecast to develop, though, with this infusion of energy on Saturday, possibly supporting gale development. And that's a much better trough than anything we've seen for weeks. And the thoughts are, if that develops, then perhaps we could get a legitimate real gale, something bigger. And this is on Sunday. That continues into about Monday. And then it looks like we're back to the same pattern, the split point. Maybe retrograded a little bit to 165 west, but significant. And yet almost a sense here, look at that the jet's trying to fall down the U.S. West Coast. The question is whether it's actually going to do that or not. The models have been teasing. We're not going to get into that right now, but there's a possibility, and we'll give it more in the lines of a remote possibility that maybe the backdoor front pattern will start. Digging down deeper in the atmosphere towards the surface level pressure, surface level winds. We know there's a gale on the dateline. There it is, 50-knot winds. We're surrounded by an area of 45-knot winds and aimed a little bit broader fetch area. The pattern of late has been just these small gales that just sort of blast off to the northeast, don't get much traction. Yeah, they generate seas, but we get this sort of steady 5 to 6 feet at 13 or 14 second energy pushing into North and Central California, which is great, but it's not big enough for what is typical this time of year. Anyway, we get through Sunday into Monday. That system, again, pushes off to the northeast. A secondary system is forecast behind that on Tuesday with 50 to barely 55 knot winds, again blasting off to the northeast. High pressure in control over the East Pacific. And then things kind of settle down for a little bit. Remember, the winds in the jet stream backed off. The jet almost is forecast to unzip. But then as we get into the weekend, the new trough starts digging out, and lo and behold, as expected, a much, I don't want to say much more, but a more robust gale with, well, storm with 50 to 55 knot winds, better than anything we've seen in a while, is forecast developing, but again, lifting off to the northeast. Perhaps a little bit better shot at swell generation potential from this one. If it develops as forecast, it's still 6+ days out, so take it all with a grain of salt. All right, significant wave heights. We're going back in time to, where are we? Sunday. Yes, that was a week ago. There's been, you can sort of get the sense of these small little gales. There we go. So this little system here, the swell from this system on Wednesday hit Northern California on Saturday. Swell from this little system hit Northern California on Sunday, and it's already passed by Hawaii. The next system on Thursday developed a little bit stronger with, what was that, 38 foot. I think we got up to 39 foot. Let's see. There we go. 40-foot seas. This was Friday. That swell is due in. It's probably hitting Hawaii already. I haven't even looked, honestly. And it's supposed to be into the U.S. West Coast on Monday, I believe. And then we get into this slack pattern. There we go. And here comes the next gale starting to develop on Sunday. And now let's move on to the forecast. This is hindcast data. And here we are, 18Z Sunday. The gale developing on the dateline. Not a huge one, but a decent area of 37-foot seas and aimed a little bit more off to the east. So swell expected in for Hawaii. I mean, you can probably almost watch the swell front progress in there. Sometime, I think it was on Thursday for the U.S. West Coast. And a secondary system, again, let's go back here, starting on Tuesday, getting pretty strong, 37-foot, 38, 40-foot seas. Yep, 40-foot seas right there Tuesday evening in the northwestern Gulf of Alaska. That energy pretty much bypassing Hawaii, but good for the Pacific Northwest down into Northern California. And then we get that bit of a break for a while until we get into the new system that's developing just today with, and what is 37-foot seas, and now 38, almost 39-foot seas, and then lifting northeast from there. So perhaps a little bit better potential. Not a huge system. Most of the systems so far have been this winter, other than a handful here and there, have been small in aerial coverage, decent winds, but not great. Seas never exceeding really 40 feet. And that just limits the amount of swell, the amount of energy transferred to the water, and the resulting swell is, you know, not as big as what we have seen like last year or in previous years. Not unexpected considering this is a La Niña year. Looking at winds for mainly the Hawaiian Islands, North Central California, 18Z Sunday. Yeah, winds were out of the north about 10 knots today, starting about noon. That's about what the model said. Trades for the Hawaiian Islands, 15 knots sort of thing. Monday, pretty much the same deal, though lighter winds near shore early. Trades for the Hawaiian Islands. Tuesday, pretty much the same deal. Sort of a pressure gradient developing for Northern California with high pressure pushing into the Pacific Northwest. You would think that it would break down at some point, but no. So we get into Wednesday. Again, still a pretty light wind regime from Point Arena southward. North of there, Cape Mendocino, Point Arena, that area, pretty strong north winds. Light trades for the Hawaiian Islands. Thursday, that all breaks down in just a slack wind pattern for North and Central California. Light trades for Hawaii. Friday, pretty much the same deal. Saturday, a little bit more northerly wind for Northern California and early, so maybe not so great there. Trades for the Hawaiian Islands. And then we get into Sunday, back to the same sort of pattern. Just This steady, again, the jet stream here, splitting off to the north, going down this way, high pressure locked in, just a bit off the coast, ridging barely into Cape Mendocino, creating some winds there, but south of there, everything pretty much protected, a light flow generally expected, and with the high being offset to the north here more, pretty much just a light trade pattern for the Hawaiian Islands. Now regarding precipitation, well, with high pressure in control, you pretty much know what the drill is. We'll run through it here. You can see the focus of precipitation from, we'll say, Whistler northward, something like that, maybe a little bit down into Washington, but then we get into, we're into already Friday and virtually nothing. We're into Sunday, nothing, high pressure in control, and just locked out. So we looked at some of the long-range models. The GFS model goes out actually 2 weeks, and it's been teasing lately, saying somewhere around February 14th, 15th, maybe a series of, light precip events and light snow events for California. But then as of today's run, that's pretty much all gone. The CFS model, you can look at the jet stream out to a month, and it's been saying again also that come February 14th, 15th, the jet's supposed to start dipping over north and parts of central California, maybe ushering something in. We suspect that is all predicated on the fact of the inactive phase building in the West Pacific, stealing energy from the jet stream so the jet stream can then unzip and the split point moves instead of sitting at 160 west, which is, where is it? Somewhere right around here. It goes further out. The further out the jet splits this high, then starts offsetting to the west, and that would theoretically allow storms to ride over the high and down the U.S. West Coast. But at best right now, that's a more wishful thinking than reality right now. But still, we're 10 days or more out from the supposed start of that event, so we'll see. Olympic Valley snow forecast dashboard, representative of the entire Sierra, nil, absolutely nothing, as expected. Snow levels pretty high, or freezing level, 10,500 feet, bumping up to about 12,000 feet. Then again, see this February 15th, 16th thing, suggesting perhaps lower pressure, perhaps falling freezing levels. No precip indicated here. There's a little yellow line that would pop up right there if there were some snow. Nothing indicated, but still that's a 9-10 days out, so we'll see. The model's a little bit undecided, it appears, but suspect it's not. The trend would probably be not favorable versus favorable. All right, let's go take a look long term. What's going on with the Madden-Jullian Oscillation, that periodic weather oscillation that rotates around the planet, and of course El Niño or La Niña. Both of these are oscillations. One is a 6-week oscillation over the Pacific. The other is a multi-year oscillation over the Pacific. As usual, we start by looking for signs of the active phase of the MJO, the Madden-Jullian Oscillation. So there are two phases to the MJO, active phase and inactive phase. The active phase is essentially a low-pressure system, the inactive phase a high-pressure system. There is one phase on one side of the planet, the other phase on the other. They rotate around the planet from west to east. We want the active phase over the Pacific. When that happens, it imparts energy to the jet stream, feeding the jet stream, making it stronger, theoretically getting rid of the split point, pushing the jet right into California or north of California. Feeds energy to produce troughs, which in turn produce gales, which in turn produces surf. And also, it reverses or significantly dampens trade winds in the West Pacific when the active phase is over the West Pacific. And that can then take warm water that's in the West Pacific, push it east in the form of a Kelvin wave. If you get successive active phases of the MJO that are strong enough, they produce successive Kelvin waves, and that can help usher in El Niño. Of course, we don't see that happening anytime immediately. All right, so first off, let's go look for signs of the active phase of the MJO. This is data from the TAO buoy array, series of buoys strung across the Pacific, used for monitoring El Niño. There's wind sensors on the buoys. They don't provide hourly winds, but you can get 5-day average winds. This is the East Pacific here. This is the West Pacific here. This is the equator. That is New Guinea there. The date line's right there. We're just looking at the arrows. You see pretty long arrows, more or less out of the east. That means strong wind trades out of the east. That's over the East Pacific. Same thing over the Central Pacific. In the West Pacific, from 170 west, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, that box right there, that's what we call the Kelvin wave generation area. When the active phase of the MJO is over here and trades are reversed, it can take warm water here, push it off to the east in the form of a Kelvin wave. But it's not actual wind speeds, it's the anomalies, differences from normal for this time of year. You see the winds are pretty strong out of the east in the East Pacific, but in actuality, they're not that strong, just a little bit stronger than normal, these short little arrows. Same thing over the Central Pacific. When you get into the West Pacific, pretty much the same. No clear sign of the active phase of the MJO, but no real clear sign of the inactive phase either. Sort of an in-between pattern, it looks like. Let's go look for the next 2 weeks. These are forecasts for outgoing long wave radiation. Another way of saying cloud cover. If you have a lot of clouds, you get more sunlight reflectivity off the ocean surface. That's called more OLR. And you get oranges and reds. That means high pressure. That typically means the inactive phase of the MJO. And when you get the blues here, that's less sunlight reflectivity off the ocean surface, meaning more clouds, meaning the active phase of the MJO. So let's get ourselves oriented. This is South America, Central America, Hawaii, New Guinea, Australia. EQ, that's the equator right there. 180, that's the date line right there. Kelvin wave generation area right here. Oranges there, meaning inactive phase of the MJO. We go out 5 days, 10 days, 15 days. Inactive phase of the MJO in control. So that theoretically should mean that energy is going to be stolen from the jet stream, and the jet stream should unzip, which would then allow the high pressure that's been locked pretty much over the U.S. West Coast to retrograde to the west and potentially allow for those backdoor fronts to push into California. Now, this is the statistic model. Here's the dynamic model's output, and it suggests, in fact, right there, the same thing, but with the inactive phase, you see it's sort of moving almost east of the date line here on the fourth panel, 15 days out. Per the statistic model, per the dynamic model, still locked hard in control over the Kelvin wave generation area and much stronger. So the GEFS model, the dynamic model, is actually more favorable for that unzipping jet stream pattern we're talking about. Now, this is not good for surf production, but we're kind of looking as much for surf as we are for precipitation moving into California. Phase diagrams, basically the same two models, statistic model, dynamic model, but it'll drill a little bit deeper detail. So the MJO moves from west to east, from the Indian Ocean over the maritime continent to the West Pacific to the East Pacific under the United States. Remember, it's going on the equator from west to east, over the Pacific Ocean, on the equator, over Africa, back to the Indian Ocean. Where the heavy dot is where the active phase is, so it's in the Indian Ocean. The further the dot is away from this circle, the stronger it is. So a very weak active phase over the Indian Ocean. And here are three different forecast tracks, all of it having suggest moving the active phase moving to the maritime continent and either exceedingly weak or very weak 2 weeks from now. The dynamic model, pretty much saying the same thing. Active phase just noodling around in the Indian Ocean. So that would typically mean if the inactive phase here is in the Indian Ocean, on the other side of the chart is where if the active phase is here, the inactive phase is on the other side over the West Pacific. And that's clearly what the models show. So active phase on one side of the Earth, inactive phase on the other, on the equator. So it looks like for the next 2 weeks, at least according to this data, inactive phase in control. The upper level model, this is showing areas favorable for precipitation. Greens are favorable for precipitation. Since the active phase of the MJO is a low pressure system, that's where precipitation would be. So greens, think of it as the active phase. Yellows and oranges, the inactive phase. All right, so let's get ourselves oriented. South America, Central America, that little pixel right there, that's Hawaii. New Guinea, the Philippines. 0 is the equator. dateline roughly here. This goes out 40 days now, so 8 different panels. You can see what's left of the active phase in the next, by February 11th, pretty much out of the Kelvin wave generation area, which is here, and it sort of holds neutral. And then this model is showing no inactive phase until March, this is a bit of a break or different from the previous 2 models, suggesting the inactive phase lagging, and we sort of sit in a neutral pattern until we get into early March, and that's when the inactive phase in earnest starts. And then the 1 month forecast out, right? This is the whole planet on one chart, all right? The reds and oranges in this are westerly anomalies, the active phase of the MJO. Blues are the inactive phase. Let's get ourselves oriented. This is the whole planet on one chart, so the date line runs right up the middle here, 180 west. The far west Pacific starts at about 135 east, so right about there, so you just draw a line in your mind's eye right up through there. Kelvin wave generation area ends at about 170 west. This is what we're really interested in. So you can look back in time, November, December. Oh, and the solid contour is the active phase of the MJO. So these two really are the same active phase. You can see the active phase moving across the planet right through there, creating westerly anomalies. Then we got into January and things just kind of lulled out. And then the dotted contour here is a solid inactive phase of the MJO, forecast to start today, basically, and continue traversing the Kelvin wave generation area to a point south of California. California is about 120 west through March 5th. And you see the blues, solid easterly anomalies, strong easterly anomalies about February 19th. So one would think that in this area, right in here, the potential for storm production would probably be pretty slim. Not guaranteed to be slim, but less than likely. But this is also would be the target when the the inactive phase steals energy from the jet stream, that the jet stream should unzip, and then we would get potential for rainfall into maybe early March, something like that, in California. We'll see. And then finally, the 3-month CFS model going out. Past performance at the bottom, future performance at the top. Just eyeballing this, again, the date line running right up the middle. Kelvin wave generation area starts about 135 east, so right about here, going to 170 west right through here. That's the main area. That's where energy gets imparted to the jet, so we focus on that area. Clearly back in January, you can see, yellows and reds, westerly anomalies, active phase of the MJO. You can clearly see a big blue spot here, inactive phase of the MJO into about early March. But then notice, past that, nary a significant blue event after that into May, suggesting maybe active phase continuously or some sort of change in the Pacific starting there. We know that things are changing. We know that La Niña is dying. And when La Niña dies, then the easterly anomalies die with it. It looks like come about the 10th of March, La Niña, at least from an atmospheric perspective, might be finally over. Let's overlay the MJO here, see if we know what we're really talking about. Okay, dotted contour, inactive phase of the MJO. We're back in December, right here. The solid contour, active phase of the MJO, that's past us. Inactive phase started. We're right in the middle of it now. It's right on the date line. The worst of the easterly anomalies forecast about Valentine's Day, something like that. So theoretically, you won't be pestered with snow or surf to interrupt your Valentine's Day festivities. And then we get into March. Active phase, pretty decent, robust one, starts developing westerly anomalies, and that goes and continues into April. And then beyond that, inactive phase is forecast, but notice westerly anomalies to continue. So let's overlay the low-pass filter here. Here we go, right here. Now, this is where things get interesting. On the good side, this dotted contour here, I mean, we could actually get rid of that and that if you wanted to, but we'll leave it on there. This dotted contour here, this is a high-pressure bias. It's like a long-running inactive phase of the MJO. You see it locked over the date line, and has been locked over the date line. It is supposed to start drifting off to the east, and is effectively to be out or east of the Kelvin wave generation area as we get into April. And what's even more interesting, this solid contour, which looks like a long-running active phase of the MJO, it's actually a low-pressure bias, and it's exactly what we want. It's been over the Indian Ocean, but it's supposed to start moving into the Pacific in earnest about middle of March. And as you get later into March and April, a second contour develops, and this is the switchover we were talking about from this high-pressure dominated regime in the West Pacific to a low-pressure dominated regime. Now, here's the rub. We've been talking about the jet stream splitting and the inactive phase. We'll get this out of here. This inactive phase right here, stealing energy from the jet stream so the jet stream can unzip or split further back to the west, so high pressure can retrograde to the west, so that precipitation in the storm track can ridge over the Gulf of Alaska high pressure system and fall down the U.S. West Coast, bringing precipitation to California. But on top of all that, you have this slowly migrating westward low pressure bias. And the question is, will that continue to feed energy into the jet stream, which would be good for storm production? But what it might also do is prevent the unzipping of the jet stream and then shut down our potential for precipitation as we get into March. It's our last kind of window. We're thinking by mid-February, we're talking mid-February, maybe rainfall coming into California, and the model's unsure on that. And we think a lot of that is due to this low-pressure bias and its path over the West Pacific, and how much effect is that really going to have on the jet stream? This is a pretty powerful influencer here. This is a long-term trend. This is not an El Nino trend, but it gets you set up to be in a more normal trend. So the falling apart of La Niña and the transition back to a normal pattern might actually, though we like that, it might not bode well for precipitation as we continue into our winter pattern for another month or so. All right, enough MJO talk. What's going on long term now? Real long term. ENSO, La Niña. What's going on in the ocean? West Pacific here, East Pacific here. We're looking at sea subsurface temperatures down in the ocean, down 200, 300, 400 meters. Be like 900 feet, 600 feet, something like that. West Pacific here. These little X's are the anchor lines on the TA buoy array, those buoys strung across the equator used for monitoring El Nino. The X's are sensors. They collect data. They use a model then to take the temperature data to fill in the gaps and determine where the balance of warm and cold water is in the Pacific. During La Niña, cold water takes over the East Pacific. Warm water stays balled up in the West Pacific. Trades blow harder than normal. There are no Kelvin waves. The active phase of the MJO is muted, and so all your warm water ends up in the West Pacific. We've been watching this. The 29-degree isotherm, that's 29 degrees centigrade, warm water, it wasn't even on the chart for months. It's come back. It's been here for the past couple of weeks, holding about at 173 east. The 28-degree isotherm holding at about 176 west. Now, the big change here is the 24-degree isotherm. Actually, it was the whole way over yesterday. It was the whole way over pushing into Ecuador. Looks like it's backed off a little bit today. But it's not the actual water temperatures. It is the anomalies, differences from normal for this time of year. And what you can clearly see is warmer than normal water here in the West Pacific is pushing off to the east. We've all winter had 3 to 4 degree below normal temperatures here in the East Pacific. They're all but gone now. We have, this is a Kelvin wave, warm water pushing off to the east, moving to, well, that's 120, so almost 115 west as of today. So the Kelvin wave, still in flight, pushing to the east, getting again another sign that La Niña is dying. The high-res model, using the same data and some other stuff, also telling the same picture. The leading edge of the Kelvin wave now at 105 west, so that's some point south of Mexico. Ecuador's over here. This is the last of the cold water of La Niña's cold water in the East Pacific, steadily getting pushed to the surface and fading, losing density, losing coverage. That's exactly what we want to see. Sea level anomalies. We use satellite data to look at the height of the sea, not the waves, not wind waves, not tide. You strip all that out. It's just the sphere of the ocean. Is it higher or lower than normal? So this is the equator here. This is the date line here. That's Chile, Peru, Central America, Yucatan right there, Baja, California, Hawaii right there, New Guinea there. We see plus, the oranges and yellows, plus values. That is warmer than normal water, or not actually. What it is the sea height is 10, 15 centimeters above normal. Warm water expands at depth. When it expands, it creates a bubble or a bump on the ocean surface. You can clearly see that here. And you can see it's pretty much neutral the whole way to, where are we here? About 110 west. It was a more pronounced raised signal out here, but it's fading some, suggesting maybe the Kelvin wave is losing energy as it pushes off to the east. But the good news here is, well, there is, let's see, Ecuador's like right there, and that's the Galapagos there. All we have is minus 5 centimeter anomalies here, suggesting that there isn't much cold water at depth here. In fact, La Niña is all but dead. And upper ocean heat anomalies. This is a time phase chart. We go back a year to February 2021, and here we are, February 2022. West Pacific here, East Pacific here. Cold water, the blues are cold water. Last year's La Niña cold pulse last summer, we got 1, 2, 3 Kelvin waves pushed across the Pacific, and then it all collapsed. Cold water redeveloped again in July, and this was our second lobe of La Niña. Now here is our Kelvin wave right now, making it to about 115, maybe 110 west, so pushing across the Pacific, and the expectation is it'll make it the whole way to Ecuador, and that should put a stake in the heart of La Niña. Sea surface temperature anomalies. The great news here is there is only one little tiny area of cold water remaining. So what do we got? Chile, Peru, Central America, Mexico, Hawaii, the equator right about here. And the other good news here is the cold waters that were out here are a lot less colder. They're out here and down all around the edges, and there's warm water encroaching up Chile, not made it to Peru yet. I mean, the only thing really left of La Niña that's of any active occurrence right now is just this bit along Peru and these couple of pockets here. That all we believe is the last of the cool pool being pushed up to the surface by that Kelvin wave that is at like 110 west, so it's right here, the whole way across the Pacific, pushing off to the east like a steamroller, just taking cold water, the last of it, pushing up to the surface. Then the trades catch it, drag it out along the equator. But we expect this, it's been fading, we expect it to continue to fade significantly over the next coming weeks as the Kelvin wave pushes east. Sea surface temperature trend, same deal. Warming off of Chile, Peru, in pockets pretty much here along the equator. These two little cool pockets showed up just yesterday. So maybe that suggests, again, just the final little bit of cold water squeezing up to the surface, getting, just pulled out of the ocean. But the trend we expect is to be continued warming in this whole area for weeks to come as that Kelvin wave erupts in the East Pacific. And then the final overview, pretty much the same thing. You can see the planet warm everywhere, all in the oceans. The oceans are a huge heat sink. They absorb heat and soak it up, and the only thing that's not hot is the La Niña signal. At some point, all this heat has got to get vented up into the atmosphere. Probably not immediately. The atmosphere, 2 years of La Niña, pretty well disposed to a La Niña pattern, but at some point that will break down. Sea surface temperatures in the Niño 1.2 region. This is the area right there along the Galapagos and Ecuador. Temperatures 1.317 degrees below normal, so still pretty cold. You could see it on the charts, not unexpected. It's the official El Nino region, the Niño 3.4 region. This is the area on the equator from a point south of California out to roughly the dateline. Temperatures, little bit at a time, warming up. Minus 559 thousandths of a degree below normal. The La Niña threshold is a half a degree below normal for 5 consecutive months. We are right on the cusp of officially being out, or at least into minimal or no La Niña regime anymore. If we can just get up in there and stay there, which seems entirely likely in the coming weeks. All right, what does the atmosphere think is going on? We've talked about the MJO, and that sort of gives us a forecast out the next week or two, or a couple of weeks, maybe a month. We've talked about, the La Niña tendencies, the low and high pressure bias, and that gives us sort of a view out 3 months. All right, what does and then we've talked about what's going on in the ocean, the temperature profiles there, and that all seems to be moving away from La Niña. What's happening in the atmosphere? Well, we look at the difference in pressure between Darwin and Tahiti. Tahiti in the Pacific, Darwin roughly in the Indian Ocean. Surface pressure there. When pressure is lower in Tahiti, this index goes negative. If it stays negative for 20 days or something like that, or 15 days, that probably is a good sign of the active phase of the MJO moving over Tahiti in the West Pacific. But if it's positive, then that's probably a good sign of high pressure, the inactive phase of the MJO moving over the West Pacific. Today's value, plus 14.41, and you just eyeball this down here. It's been positive, well, since about January 18th, all suggesting the inactive phase of the MJO. You notice we were pretty negative here back in early January, that time frame. That was the active phase of the MJO. But this can be pretty noisy. So let's go average it out 30 days. The value 5.44 today. But you can sort of see we were high. It started dipping. This was probably the active phase of the MJO. Now we're moving back to the inactive phase. Now the 90-day average is your El Nino La Nina indicator. Today's value, again, positive, 9.52. And where has it been? Pretty much holding there. Indicative of a weak La Nina. I mean, this thing peaked out last year at 15, plus 15. We never got anywhere close to there. We're plus 9.77. That's about as high as we've been. So this year's La Nina, at least according to this index, weaker than last year's. And the 30-day average was up at 19 last year. We got nowhere close this year. In fact, let's go look at the this data graphed out. So like we said, so here's negative numbers. This would be El Nino. Positive numbers, La Nina. You can see last year we were up at about 20. This was the peak in January. This year, nowhere close. We got to 14 maybe, not even that, and we're falling now and just sort of toggling around. Now we're moving into the inactive phase, so this will probably start creeping up again. But all the fundamentals for La Nina are gone. I mean, the subsurface temperatures aren't there. The high pressure bias is moving out. The low pressure bias is moving in. Everything clearly indicates here that we're moving towards a much better regime. We just got to suck it up for another 2 or 3 months. And then finally, the sea surface temperature forecast in the official El Nino monitoring region, the Niño 3.4 region, sea surface temperature anomalies. So this is the forecast from the CFS model. We said this again last week. We think this is complete nonsense. This suggests that temperatures rising in February to about minus 3/4 of a degree below normal, then falling back down to 1 degree below normal and holding there into October. That would be a third-year La Nina officially. And even the PDF corrected version still has temperatures at minus 0.8 degrees, still officially La Nina. So we're writing all this off saying there's something wrong with this. Maybe this model's right because sometimes it pulls off amazing things. But right now, we're not believing this. Every other model, and there's like 30 of them, are all saying we're returning to a neutral ENSO phase as we get into the spring and early summer. All right, so the good news is there is yet another storm and some more forecasts, not particularly big ones, but maybe a week out, a solid storm forecast. And there will be more small swell, light winds looking for most of California, light trades for the Hawaiian Islands. So more swell, nothing huge, but steady, nonstop, rideable surf with reasonably groomed conditions in our main forecast areas, Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast. Beyond that, we're looking for rainfall. Of course, rain does not bring favorable winds for surfing in California, but any hope, we're moving into the inactive phase of the MJO. We're hoping the jet will unzip a little bit. That'll probably kill the swell pattern, but it'll give us a little bit of snow. We're at 75% of normal rainfall-wise and snow-wise in the Sierra. We need 25% more, so a couple of good soakings and we'll probably be there. We had originally forecast, and this is just speculative forecast way early in the season, saying we might eke out 75% of normal precip for the year. We're there right now. It'd be really cool to be able to get 100%, so that's what we're hoping for, but it'll cost us some surf in the process. My guess is if it's going to happen, it's going to happen starting February 18th, 19th, and maybe go for a couple of weeks. We'll get some storms, and then the jet stream will wake up again. We'll get more surf, but the rainfall season will pretty much be over by then. Looking out long term, clearly La Niña is fading. We think it's all but gone. It's just a matter of time now. I mean, the reality is our winter season will be over before La Niña is. But clearly, as we get into the May timeframe, something like that, that'll set us up for a return to normal pattern, the fundamentals out over the Pacific, the jet stream and all that. It's going to take probably 3 to 4 to 5 months for that to return to normal. But if all that happens, by the time we get into next fall and winter, we should be in a quote-unquote normal pattern. And if that happens, hey, that'd be good. Normal surf, normal precip, all that sort of thing. So just get through the next couple of months. And right now, hey, things aren't so bad. There is some surf if you're in the right place at the right time and all that sort of thing. All right, if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. We appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. The Stormsurf icon's down there in the lower right-hand corner now. You can just click that and subscribe. That makes it even easier. And if not, you can, if you want to see the video, also, you get automatic notifications when you subscribe when we post the video. If not, just go to stormsurf.com. All the data you've seen tonight will be available there. Follow along during the week. We post the video, links to the video, top of every page of the site. You can get to the video that way. All right, next week, there will not be a video. Got some family business I need to take care of. So family first, right? Even when it involves waves, yes, take care of your family. But then the week after that will be good, and probably for quite a while after that. All right, thank you for watching. It's always fun doing this, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Take care.